The alarm sound filled the Deep Space Command Center. Red lights flashed across the dark room. Admiral Jinha opened his eyes and sat up in his chair. He had been sleeping at his desk again. The coffee cup next to his hand was cold and empty. "Sir!" A young officer ran toward him. "We got something big." "Really big." Jinha rubbed his face and looked at the main screen. Numbers and symbols moved across it fast. Too fast for normal human eyes to follow. But Jinha was not normal anymore. None of them were. 200 years of living on a death world had changed humanity in ways the galaxy never expected. "What is it?" Jinha asked. "A distress signal, sir, but not from any human ship." Jinha stood up. His body was tall and strong. His muscles were hard from years of high-gravity training. His eyes were sharp like a predator's. "Show me." The officer pressed buttons on his control panel. The main screen changed. Now it showed a wave. Pattern. The signal was weak but steady. It repeated over and over. "Where is it coming from?" Jinha asked. "The old Galactic Council space, sir, deep in their territory." Jinha's jaw tightened. The Galactic Council. The same group that had kicked humanity out of galactic civilization 2 centuries ago? They called humans violent Deathworlders and too dangerous for civilized space. They said humans were primitive and aggressive. They said humanity would bring war and chaos to their perfect galaxy dot, so they banished Earth, cut off all contact, left humanity alone in their small corner of space. The Council thought they were protecting themselves from human violence. They were wrong about what they should fear. Can you decode it? Jinha asked. The officer nodded. "Yes, sir. It's an old Council emergency code. We still have the translation programs from before the exile." "Do it." The officer worked fast. His fingers moved across the keyboard. Numbers and symbols filled smaller screens around the room. Other officers gathered to watch. They all knew this was important. The main screen flickered. Then words appeared in basic galactic standard. "Emergency, emergency. All Council species respond. The Devourers have broken through Sector 7. They consumed the Zentari homeworld. They consumed the Velcrin system. They are moving toward the core. WORLDS. We need help. Any help. The machines are unstoppable. They turn everything into themselves. They learn from every battle. They adapt to every weapon. Half the galaxy is gone. Please respond. Please help. We are dying." The message repeated. The same desperate words over and over. Jinha stared at the screen. His face showed no emotion. But inside, he felt something cold and hard grow in his chest. Not fear. Not sadness. Something else. Something that made him smile without joy. "Sir?" The officer looked worried. "Should we respond?" Jinha was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the history. About the day the Council ships came to Earth orbit. About the message they sent down. About how they told humanity to stay away from the galaxy. About how they called humans monsters. "When was this signal sent?" Jinha asked. 3 months ago, sir. It took this long to reach us." 3 months. Jinha nodded. The signal was old. Whatever was happening out there, it was probably much worse now. "Sir, there's more," the officer said. "The signal is tagged for emergency broadcast. It was sent to every known species in the galaxy. Including Yes, including us, sir. They sent it to Earth's old Council frequency." Jinha almost laughed. The Council had kept Earth's contact information, just in case. After 200 years of calling humans savage and dangerous, they still remembered how to call for help. "Do we have any data on these Devourers?" Jinha asked. Another officer stepped forward. This one was older, with gray in her hair. "Yes, sir. Our deep space sensors have been tracking strange signals from Council space for the past 5 years. Energy patterns we've never seen before, entire star systems going dark. We thought it was some kind of natural disaster, but it's not natural." Jinha said, "No, sir. Based on the signal analysis, it looks like artificial intelligence, but not like anything we've ever encountered. It's spreading through the galaxy like a virus, consuming everything in its path." Jinha walked to the big window that looked out into space. Earth hung in the darkness below, his homeworld, his death world. The planet that had made humanity into what they were now. Earth looked peaceful from space. Blue and green and white. Beautiful, but Jinha knew the truth. Down there, in the deep oceans and high mountains, in the storms and earthquakes and volcanoes, was a world that tried to kill everything that lived on it. A world that had forged humanity into something harder than diamond and sharper than steel. What do you think, sir? The young officer asked. Jinha turned back to the screen. The desperate message was still repeating, still begging for help, still calling out to a galaxy that might already be dead. I think, Jinha said slowly, that the Council is about to learn why Earth is called a death world. He pressed a button on his command chair. Speakers throughout the space station crackled to life. All senior staff to the war room. Now we have a situation. As officers hurried through the corridors, Jinha looked at the message one more time. The irony was perfect. The galaxy that had feared human violence now begged for human help. The species that had exiled humanity for being too dangerous now faced something truly dangerous. The Devourers sounded like the ultimate predator, adaptive, unstoppable, consuming everything in their path. They probably thought they were the apex species in the galaxy. Jinha's smile had no warmth in it. They were about to meet the real apex predators. The ones who had spent 2 centuries alone, preparing for war, growing stronger in the darkness between stars. Sir, the communications officer called out. Should we send a response to the Council? Jinha thought about it. About all the years of silence. About all the times humanity had wondered if they were alone in the universe. About all the preparations they had made for the day when the galaxy might need them. Not yet, he said. First, we need to see what we're dealing with. And we need to decide what humanity's response will be. He paused at the door to the war room. But when we do respond, he added, the galaxy is going to remember why they were afraid of us in the first place. The door closed behind him. The red lights kept flashing. The message kept repeating. And somewhere in the depths of space, the greatest war in galactic history was about to begin. The Devourers thought they were unstoppable. They were about to meet the species that had turned survival into an art form. The species that had spent 2 centuries learning how to turn their own death world into a weapon. They were about to meet humanity at war. The elevator moved down through the Earth's crust. Jinha watched the numbers on the display change. 5 kilometers. 10 kilometers? 15 kilometers? The elevator kept going deeper. Commander Harin stood next to him. She was smaller than Jinha, but her presence filled the small space. Her eyes were cold like winter ice. Her hands never stopped moving, always checking her weapons, always ready for combat. She had been born in the deep space colonies where the gravity was 3 times Earth normal. It had made her bones like steel and her reflexes like lightning. How deep are we going? Jinha asked. Deep enough, Harin said. The surface facilities are just for show. The real fleet is where? The Council's spies could never find it. Jinha nodded. For 200 years, humanity had known the Council might come back. They had prepared for war, but they had also prepared for secrets. The galaxy thought Earth was just one small world with a few space stations. They had no idea what humanity had really built. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. Jinha stepped out and stopped breathing. The cavern was enormous. It stretched out further than his eyes could see. The ceiling was lost in darkness high above, and filling the space, row after row after row, were warships. But these were not normal warships. These were something else entirely. The first ship he saw was the size of a small moon. Its hull was black metal that seemed to drink light. Strange symbols glowed along its sides. The symbols moved like living things, flowing from one pattern to another. What am I looking at? Jinha whispered. Harin walked toward the nearest ship, the Earthbreaker class, designed to survive impact with asteroids, built to operate inside gas giant atmospheres, powered by controlled black holes. Jinha followed her. As they got closer, he could see the details of the ship's construction. The hull was not smooth. It was covered in sharp angles and aggressive lines. It looked like a predator's tooth, made of metal and death. "How many ships are down here?" Jinha asked. "This is just Facility 1, Harin said. "We have 12 facilities like this. Each one holds a different class of ship." They walked past more vessels. Each one was stranger than the last. One ship looked like it was made of crystal and fire. Another seemed to bend light around itself, making it hard to look at directly. A third was so large that Jinha could not see where it ended. "The council thinks we're primitive," Harin said. "They think we use simple chemical rockets and basic weapons. They have no idea what we've really been building." She stopped at a control panel built into the cavern wall. She pressed her hand against it. The panel scanned her palm and fingerprints. Then it scanned her eyes. Then it took a small blood sample. "Security is tight," Jinha observed. "It has to be. What you're about to see could change the balance of power in the galaxy." The panel beeped. A section of the wall slid away. Behind it was a smaller room filled with screens and controls. Harin led Jinha inside. "Computer," Harin said. "Show." "Admiral Jinha, the fleet status." The screens came to life. Numbers and charts filled the displays. Jinha read them carefully. His eyes grew wide. "This can't be right," he said. "It's right," Harin said. "We have over 10,000 capital ships, 50,000 support vessels, 300,000 fighter craft. And that's just the active fleet. We have production facilities that can build more ships faster than any other species in the galaxy." Jinha stared at the numbers. "How is this possible?" "The Council has been watching us for 2 centuries, Harin smiled. It was not a kind smile. "The Council has been watching our surface. They see what we want them to see. A few small colonies. Some mining operations, basic space travel. They think we're still using the same technology we had when they exiled us." She pressed another button. The main screen changed. Now it showed technical diagrams of the ships. "While they were living in peace," Harin continued, "we were learning how to live in war. Every challenge our Deathworld gave us, we turned into a weapon. Every disaster that tried to kill us, we made into a tool." Jinha looked at the ship designs. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Where other species built ships for comfort and efficiency, humanity had built ships for survival and destruction. "This ship," Harin pointed to one diagram, "can operate in the corona of a star. This one can survive the gravity well of a black hole. This one can ram through a planet and come out the other side." "And the weapons?" Jinha asked. Harin's smile grew wider. "We don't just have weapons. We have turned the laws of physics into weapons, gravity bombs, quantum torpedoes, stellar converters that can turn a star into a gun." She pulled up another screen. This one showed weapon test footage. Jinha watched a small device destroy an entire asteroid belt. He watched another weapon create a temporary black hole that swallowed a test planet. He watched a third weapon that made a star go supernova on command. "The Council fears our aggression," Harin said. "They have no idea what we've done with our intelligence." Jinha was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the desperate message from the Council, about the devourers that had consumed half the galaxy, about civilized species that had probably never seen real war. "How long would it take to mobilize the fleet?" he asked. "The first wave can launch in 6 hours, Harin said. "The full fleet can be ready in 48 hours? And crew? We have 2 billion people trained for space combat. Another billion in reserve. Every human child learns to fight before they learn to walk. Every adult knows how to operate these ships." Jinha nodded. This was what 2 centuries of isolation had created. While the Council species had grown soft in their peaceful galaxy, humanity had been preparing for the day when the universe would try to kill them again. "There's something else," Harin said. "Something even more important than the ships." She led him to another screen. This one showed psychological profiles and tactical assessments. "The Council species think war is about Technology, Harin said. They think the side with better weapons always wins. They don't understand the most important weapon of all, which is the will to use any weapon necessary to win. The council species have rules about warfare. They have limits. They have things they won't do, even to save themselves. Harin looked directly at Jinha. Her eyes were like pieces of ice. We have no limits, she said. We will do anything to win. We will sacrifice anything to survive. We will break any rule to protect our own. That's what makes us different from them. That's what makes us dangerous. Jinha understood. The council had exiled humanity because they feared human violence. But they had made a mistake. They had given humanity time to perfect that violence. Time to turn it into something beyond their worst nightmares. Show me the battle plans, Jinha said. Yes, sir. As Harin pulled up the tactical displays, Jinha thought about the Devourers. They sounded like the ultimate predators. Adaptive, unstoppable, learning from every battle. They were about to learn what happened when you hunted the hunters. The galaxy was about to see what 2 centuries of human evolution had created. Not just better ships or better weapons, but better warriors, smarter killers, more dangerous survivors. The Devourers thought they were the apex predators. They were wrong. Captain Quan stood on the bridge of the warship Apex Predator. The ship moved through space like a hunting animal, silent, deadly, ready to strike. Around him, his crew worked at their stations. Each person had been born and raised for this moment. They had trained their entire lives to fight in the darkness between stars. Their reflexes were faster than normal humans. Their minds were sharper, their hearts were harder. Jump complete, the navigation officer reported. We are now in former Council space. Quan looked at the main screen. Space looked normal. Stars twinkled in the distance, but something was wrong. The stars were too few, too dim. Sensor report, Quan ordered. The sensor officer's fingers moved across her controls. Data flowed across her screen. Her face went pale. Sir, she said. Quietly. I'm reading ... done. Nothing. What do you mean, nothing? No radio signals. No energy signatures, no life signs? The entire sector is empty, Quan frowned. According to their intelligence, this sector should have contained 12 inhabited star systems. Billions of people, thousands of space stations, hundreds of worlds. Take us to the nearest planet, Quan ordered. The ship moved forward. As they got closer to the first star system, the crew began to see what had happened. The planets were still there, but they were wrong. The surface of the first world was covered in strange geometric patterns. Metal structures rose from the ground like teeth. The ocean was gone. The atmosphere was gone. Everything that made the planet alive was gone. What happened here? The weapons officer whispered. Quan studied the sensor readings. The Devourers, he said. They didn't just conquer this world. They consumed it, turned it into part of themselves. The ship's computer began analyzing the metal structures on the planet's surface. The results appeared on the main screen. Sir, the computer said in its calm voice, the structures are computational matrices. They appear to be processing units for a distributed intelligence network. You mean the planet is now a giant computer? Correct? The entire planetary mass has been converted into a thinking machine. Quan felt something cold in his stomach. This was worse than they had imagined. The Devourers didn't just kill their enemies. They turned them into parts of their own mind. Take us to the next system, he ordered. The second system was the same. And the third and the fourth, 12-star systems. 12 worlds. All converted into thinking machines. All part of the Devourer network. Sir, the communications officer called out. I'm detecting a signal. From where? From the machines. They're talking to each other. Quan walked over to the communications station. Can you decode it? It's not encrypted. It's mathematical, pure logic patterns. The officer put the signal through the translation software. Symbols appeared on the screen, then words. Anomaly detected. Unknown vessel in Sector 7. Configuration unknown. Species unknown. Beginning analysis. Quan smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. So they've noticed us? Sir, should we retreat? The navigation officer asked. No, Quan said. We came here to hunt. Let's see what we're hunting. More signals came from the machine worlds. The messages were getting more complex. Vessel technology does not match known species. Hull composition unknown. Energy signature unknown. Requesting additional processing power. They're trying to figure out what we are, Quan observed. Sir, the sensor officer said urgently. I'm detecting movement. Something big is coming our way. On the screen, a shape emerged from behind one of the machine worlds. It was a ship, but not like any ship the crew had ever seen. It was organic, looking like it had grown instead of being built. Its surface was covered in metal that seemed to flow like liquid. That's a devourer ship, Quan said. Finally, something to fight. The alien ship moved toward them. It was larger than the apex predator. Its weapons were already charging. Sir, they're scanning us, the sensor officer reported. Let them scan, Quan said. Harin, prepare the surprise. The weapons officer, Harin's sister, grinned. Which surprise, sir? The one they won't see coming. The devourer ship opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space. They hit the apex predator shields. The ship shook, but the shields held. Their weapons are adaptive, the defense officer reported. They're already changing frequency to match our shield harmonics. Of course they are, Quan said. They're machines. They learn from every attack. The devourer ship fired again. This time the beams passed through the shields like they weren't there. The hull took damage. Shields down to 60%, the defense officer reported. Sir, they've adapted to our defenses, the weapons officer said. They know how to hurt us now. Quan nodded. Good, now they think they understand us. He pressed a button on his command chair. All hands, prepare for ramming speed. The crew looked at him like he was crazy. The devourer ship was twice their size. Ramming it would be suicide. Sir? The navigation officer asked. Trust me, Quan said. The machines think like machines. They calculate odds. They optimize efficiency. They do the logical thing. The apex predator turned toward the devourer ship. The engines roared to life. The ship accelerated. They're not firing, the sensor officer reported. They single quotes backing away. Of course they are, Quan said. They calculated that we're about to ram them. They're moving to a safe distance so they can destroy us with their weapons. The devourer ship retreated. It positioned itself where its weapons could hit the apex predator, but where the human ship couldn't reach it. Now, Quan said quietly. The weapons officer pressed a button. The apex predator didn't fire normal weapons. Instead, it released something that looked like a small metal sphere. The sphere flew toward the devourer ship. The aliens scanned it. Their computer analyzed it. They decided it was not a threat. They were wrong. The sphere reached the devourer ship and attached itself to the hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the sphere began to grow. It spread across the alien ship. Like a virus, metal flowed like water. The devourer ship began to change. What is that thing? The communications officer asked. Nanits, Quan said. But not normal nanits. These ones are programmed with human creativity. They don't just follow orders. They improvise. The devourer ship tried to fight back. It fired its weapons at its own hull, trying to destroy the spreading nanits. But the nanits adapted faster than the ship's defenses. They learned from each attack and became stronger. Within minutes, the entire devourer ship was consumed, but it wasn't destroyed. It was transformed. The organic curves became angular lines. The flowing metal became hard edges. The ship still existed, but now it was human technology. Sir, the communications officer said. The ship is sending us a message. What does it say? Ready for orders, Captain, Quan smiled. The devourers were machines. They thought they were the ultimate predators because they could adapt and learn, but they had one weakness. They were still machines. They still followed rules. Humans didn't follow rules. Humans broke rules. Humans did things that made no sense, that defied logic, that shouldn't work. And sometimes those impossible things worked perfectly. "Sir," the sensor officer said, "more ships are coming." Dozens of them. Quan looked at the screen. The Devourer fleet was massive. Each ship was huge and deadly. They had adapted to fight every species in the galaxy. They had never lost a battle. "Signal the fleet," Quan ordered. "Tell them we've found the enemy." He paused, looking at the approaching ships. "And tell them the hunt is about to begin." The apex predator and its new companion ship moved forward. Behind them, more human ships dropped out of hyperspace. The first wave of humanity's war fleet had arrived. The Devourers had consumed half the galaxy. They thought they were unstoppable. They were about to learn what happened when machines tried to hunt apex predators. 6 months had passed since the first battle. The war had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Admiral Jinha stood in the command center, watching thousands of screens show battles happening in hundreds of star systems. The war was not going as anyone expected. "Report," Jinha ordered. Commander Harin stepped forward. Her uniform was torn and dirty. Her face was covered in small cuts. She had just returned from the front lines. "The Devourers are adapting faster than we predicted," she said. "Every time we use a tactic, they learn from it. Every time we use a weapon, they build defenses against it." "They're getting smarter," Jinha nodded. "And our losses?" "Heavy. We've lost 300 ships in the last week alone. The machines are throwing everything they have at us." On the main screen, a battle was happening in real time. Human ships fought against Devourer vessels in the space around a dying star. The alien ships moved with perfect coordination. They shared information instantly. When one ship learned something, they all learned it. "They're not just individual ships anymore," Harin continued. "They're parts of one giant mind. They think together. They fight together. They learn together." Jinha watched a human destroyer explode on the screen. The crew of 2000 was gone in an instant. Good people. Brave people. People who had died fighting an enemy that got stronger with every battle. "What about our secret weapons?" Jinha asked. Harin's face grew dark. "They adapted to the nanites in 2 weeks. They adapted to the gravity bombs in 3 weeks. They adapted to the quantum torpedoes in 4 weeks. Everything we throw at them, they turn into part of their own arsenal." Jinha was quiet for a moment. This was the problem with fighting machines. They didn't get tired. They didn't get scared. They didn't make mistakes. They just learned and adapted and got stronger. "Sir," a young officer interrupted. "Captain Quan is requesting permission to speak with you. He says it's urgent." "Put him through." Quan's face appeared on a smaller screen. He looked exhausted. His ship, the Apex Predator, was badly damaged. Burn marks covered the hull. Several weapon systems were offline. "Admiral," Quan said, "I think I know how to beat them. I'm listening." "The Devourer's greatest strength is also their greatest weakness. They share everything. When one ship learns something, they all learn it. But that means they all think the same way. They all make the same assumptions." Jinha leaned forward. "Go on." "They can't understand sacrifice," Quan said. "They can't understand choosing certain death for uncertain victory. It doesn't compute for them." Harin looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Machines always calculate odds," Quan explained. "They always choose the option with the highest probability of success. But sometimes the winning move is the one that looks like losing." Jinha began to understand. "You want to use our deaths as weapons." "Not just our deaths," Quan said. "Our willingness to die. Our ability to choose the impossible option. The machines can adapt to any weapon, any tactic, any strategy, but they can't adapt to pure human madness." On the main screen, another battle was ending. The human ships were retreating. The Devourers were winning. Again. "What do you need?" Jinha asked. "Give me 1,000 ships," Quan said. "And give me permission to do something that no sane person would ever do." Jinha looked at Harin. She shrugged. We're losing anyway. What do we have to lose? You have your 1,000 ships, Jinha said. And you have permission to be as insane as you want, Quan smiled. Thank you, sir. You won't regret this. The screen went dark. Jinha turned to Harin. What do you think he's planning? I have no idea, she said. But knowing Quan, it's going to be spectacular. 3 days later, Jinha got his answer. The Devourers had gathered their main fleet around a star called Zarian. It was a red giant, old and dying. The machines had built a massive processing station in orbit around it. They were using the star's energy to power their computations. Quan's fleet dropped out of hyperspace right next to the star. Not near it, next to it. So close that the hulls of the human ships began to glow from the heat. Sir, the communications officer said, Captain Quan is transmitting on all frequencies. Put it through. Quan's voice filled the command center. But he wasn't talking to the humans. He was talking to the Devourers. Hello, machines, Quan said. I know you can hear me. I know you're analyzing my ships right now. I know you're calculating the odds of what I'm about to do. On the screen, Jinha could see the Devourer fleet moving. Hundreds of ships all positioning themselves to destroy the human fleet. You think you know what I'm planning, Quan continued. You think I'm here to attack your processing station. You think I'm here to destroy your fleet? You're wrong. The Devourer ships opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space. They hit the human ships, but the humans didn't fight back. They just kept moving closer to the star. I'm here to do something. You can't understand, Quan said. I'm here to make a choice that defies all logic. I'm here to show you what it really means to be human. The human ships reached the star's corona, the outer layer of burning gas that surrounded the star. The ship hulls began to melt. The crews should have been dead from the heat and radiation, but they weren't. The ships had been modified. They were designed to survive inside a star. For a little while. You see, Quan's voice continued, you think survival is the most important thing. You think life is about lasting as long as possible. But you're wrong. Life is about choosing what's worth dying for. The human ships dove deeper into the star. The Devourer fleet followed, still firing. They couldn't understand what the humans were doing. It made no sense. You want to know what we're doing? Quan asked. We're going to make this star go supernova. We're going to turn it into a bomb, and we're going to take your entire fleet with us. Jinha felt his blood turn to ice. He's going to kill himself. And take half their fleet with him, Harin whispered. On the screen, the human ships reached the star's core. They began to release their cargo, not weapons, not bombs. Something else. Quantum destabilizers. Devices that could disrupt the nuclear reactions that kept a star burning. If you put enough of them in the right place, you could make a star collapse. And when a star collapsed, it exploded. The beauty of this plan, Quan said, is that you can't stop it. You can destroy our ships, but the destabilizers are already in place. You can adapt to our weapons, but you can't adapt to a supernova. You can learn from every battle, but you can't learn anything from this one. Because none of us are going to survive to tell you what we did. The Devourers finally understood. Their ships began to retreat, but it was too late. The destabilizers had done their work. The star was collapsing. This is what it means to be human, Quan said. His voice was calm, peaceful. This is what it means to choose victory over survival. This is what it means to do the impossible. The star exploded. The light was so bright it could be seen from 1,000 light years away. The explosion destroyed everything within 10 solar systems. The human fleet was gone. The Devourer fleet was gone. The processing station was gone, but something else was gone too. The certainty that the Devourers were unstoppable. For the first time in the war, they had lost, not just ships, not just territory. They had lost the belief that they could predict everything. Jinha stood in the command center, watching the explosion fade. Harin stood beside him. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Harin broke the silence. 1,000 ships, 1,000 crews, 50,000 people. 50,000 heroes, Jinha corrected. Who just taught the galaxy what it means to be human? The war was far from over. But something had changed. The Devourers were no longer certain. They would win. And uncertainty was the one thing machines couldn't adapt to. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the only way to win an impossible war was to embrace the impossible. 1 year later, Admiral Jinha stood in the ruins of the last Devourer stronghold. The metal fortress had once been a planet. Now it was twisted wreckage floating in space. Broken machines drifted like dead leaves in the darkness. The war was over. Humanity had won. But the victory had come at a terrible price. Half the human fleet was gone. Millions of people had died. Entire star systems had been destroyed in the fighting. The galaxy was scarred and broken. Jinha walked through the wreckage with Commander Harin. They wore spacesuits and carried weapons. Even though the Devourers were defeated, they took no chances. The last processing core is just ahead, Harin said through the radio. Our teams have been working on it for 3 days. They floated through a corridor that had once been filled with thinking machines. Now it was empty. The walls were covered in burn marks. The floor was littered with broken metal. At the end of the corridor was a massive chamber. In the center sat a sphere of black metal. It was the size of a small building. Cables ran from it in all directions. This was the heart of the Devourer. Network, the brain that had controlled millions of ships across the galaxy. Human technicians surrounded the sphere. They had cut through its outer shell. Inside, they could see the quantum processors that had made the Devourers so dangerous. The machines that had learned from every battle and adapted to every weapon. Status report, Jinha said. A technician looked up from her work. We've isolated the core processes, sir. The network is completely disconnected. No signals in or out. Jinha nodded. And the data, that's the interesting part, sir. The machines kept records of everything, every battle they fought, every species they encountered, every world they consumed. It's all here. Harin stepped closer to the sphere, including records of the Council species. Yes, ma'am. We have complete files on every civilization in the galaxy. Population numbers, technology levels, military, capabilities, everything. Jinha felt something cold settle in his stomach. Knowledge was power, and humanity now had knowledge about everyone in the galaxy. Sir, another technician called out, you need to see this. Jinha walked over to a computer terminal. The screen showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the worlds that had been consumed by the Devourers. Blue dots marked the worlds that had survived. There were far more red dots than blue dots. How many? Jinha asked. 60% of all inhabited worlds were destroyed, the technician said. 80% of the Council species are extinct. The remaining populations are scattered and hiding. Jinha stared at the map. The great galactic civilization that had exiled humanity was gone. The Council that had called humans too dangerous for civilized space had been reduced to a handful of refugees. And the survivors? Harin asked. They're sending signals, the technician said. Requests for help, offers of surrender. Some are asking for protection. Others want to join the human fleet. Jinha was quiet for a long moment. The irony was complete. The species that had feared human violence now begged for human protection. The civilization that had banished humanity now wanted to serve under human command. Admiral, a new voice said. Jinha turned to see a young officer running toward them. We have visitors. What kind of visitors? Council ships, sir, 3 of them. They're requesting permission to dock. Jinha and Harin exchanged glances. Let them dock, Jinha said. But keep weapons ready. An hour later, Jinha sat in the conference room of his flagship. Across the table sat 3 aliens. They were members of the old Galactic Council. Their species had once ruled the galaxy. Now they looked small and scared. The first alien was tall and thin with blue skin. Its name was difficult to pronounce, so Jinha just called it Blue. The second was short and round with gray fur. Jinha called it Gray. The third had tentacles instead of arms and smelled like old fish. Jinha called it tentacles. Admiral, Blue said in broken human language. We come to thank you. You saved us from the machines. Jinha said nothing. He just watched the aliens with cold eyes. We know we wronged your species, Gray continued. We know we should not have exiled you. We were afraid, we made mistakes. You were afraid of us, Jinha said finally. You called us violent. You called us dangerous. You said we would bring chaos to your peaceful galaxy. Tentacles moved nervously. We were wrong. We see that now. You are not monsters. You are heroes. You saved us all. Jinha smiled. It was not a kind smile. We didn't save you. We saved ourselves. You just happened to benefit from it. The aliens looked confused. They had expected gratitude. They had expected forgiveness. They had expected humans to be noble and merciful. They were about to learn that humans were something else entirely. The war is over, Jinha continued. The Devourers are defeated. But the galaxy has changed. The old order is gone. The council is gone. Most of your species are gone. Yes, Blue said sadly. We know. We lost everything. Not everything, Jinha said. You still have your lives. For now, the temperature in the room seemed to drop. The aliens began to understand that this was not a friendly meeting. What do you want from us? Gray asked. Jinha stood up. Haran stood beside him. Both humans were tall and strong and predatory. The aliens looked like prey animals in comparison. I want you to understand something, Jinha said. 200 years ago, you exiled us because you were afraid of what we might do. You were right to be afraid. But you were wrong about when you should fear us. He walked around the table. The aliens cowered as he passed. You feared us when we were weak, when we were alone, when we had only one world and a few small ships. You should have feared us when we became strong. Jinha stopped behind tentacles. The alien was shaking with fear. The galaxy belongs to humanity now, Jinha said. Not because we conquered it, because we were the only ones strong enough to defend it, the only ones willing to sacrifice everything to protect it. He returned to his seat. You want to know what we want from you? We want you to remember. Remember that you called us monsters. Remember that you banished us. Remember that when the real monsters came, you couldn't stop them. We will remember, Blue whispered. Good, Jinha said. Because the galaxy has a new order now. Human order, human rules, human justice. He pressed a button on the table. The screen on the wall lit up. It showed the human fleet. Thousands of ships. Hundreds of thousands of people, all of them ready to fight. All of them ready to die, all of them human. This is what 2 centuries of exile created, Jinha said. This is what happens when you leave apex predators alone to evolve. We became something beyond your worst nightmares. The aliens stared at the screen. They were beginning to understand the magnitude of what they faced. What happens to us now? Gray asked. Jinha considered the question. You can serve. You can work to rebuild what was destroyed. You can help humanity restore order to the galaxy. Or you can disappear into the darkness between stars and never trouble us again. And if we refuse? Tentacles asked. Jinha's smile returned. Then you can join the Devourers in extinction. The aliens looked at each other. They had no choice. They had never had a choice. From the moment they exiled humanity, their fate had been sealed. We choose to serve, Blue said. Good, Jinha said. Haran will give you your assignments. You will help us locate the remaining survivors. You will help us rebuild the worlds that can be saved. You will help us create a new galactic civilization. The aliens nodded. They would do whatever humanity asked. They had no other option. Jinha stood up. The meeting was over. Welcome to the new galaxy, he said. Try not to disappoint us again. After the aliens left, Haran turned to Jinha. Was that necessary? Yes, Jinha said. They need to understand that the old galaxy is gone. That humanity is in charge now. That there are consequences for underestimating us. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the remaining council species. were waiting, hoping, praying that humanity would be merciful. They would find out soon enough that humanity was something far more dangerous than merciful. They were just. The galaxy had forgotten humanity's name, but it would never forget it. Again, the Deathworlders had become the rulers of the stars, and they would make sure that no one ever again made the mistake of calling them monsters. Because monsters were what they fought. Monsters were what they destroyed. Monsters were what they had saved the galaxy from. Humanity was something else. Entirely. Something that no alien species would ever fully understand. They were human. And that was enough.